Remember the good old days when life was a bit simpler and we had our own unique set of experiences? Well, today's video is going to be nostalgic. It's time to count down the top 50 things that only baby boomers will truly remember. So if you're ready, stick around. Number 1. Hearing the news that JFK and MLK had been shot. Even though most baby boomers were still very young, the assassinations of political leaders like President John F. Kennedy or Martin Luther King Jr. were events that had a profound impact on people of this generation regardless of their age at the time. On April 3, 1968, Martin Luther King Jr. gave a speech that seemed to eerily foreshadow his death. He said, "I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we, as a people, will get to the promised land. And I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord." The following day, King was assassinated on the balcony of a motel in Memphis, Tennessee. This was the death of an icon who sent shockwaves through the world and made African Americans more aware of their rights, paving the way for the laws such as the Fair Housing Act. On November 22, 1963, President John F. Kennedy and his wife Jackie Kennedy went on a 10-mile motorcade through downtown Dallas, Texas. When the car they were in passed the Texas School Book Depository building, Lee Harvey Oswald fatally shot the president. Vice President Lyndon B. Johnson was sworn into the presidency on Air Force One. In the following days, hundreds of thousands of Americans flocked to Washington, D.C. to pay their respects to the president. Number 2. Dealing with round-the-block lines thanks to the gas shortage. In 1973 and again in 1979, Americans faced a persistent gas shortage. Lines around the block were seen, and odd-even rationing was introduced, meaning that if the last digit on the license plate of your vehicle was odd, then you could only get gas on odd-numbered days of the week. The Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, or OPEC, exercised its muscles during 2 separate oil crises in the 1970s, during which Americans from coast to coast suffered a constant shortage of gasoline as the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Companies, or OPEC, disrupted oil supplies throughout the world. In 1973 and again in 1979, drivers frequently faced around-the-block lines when they tried to fill up. Drivers would go to stations before dawn or late at night, hoping to avoid the lines. Odd-even rationing was introduced, meaning that if the last digit on your license plate was odd, you could only get gas on odd-numbered days. New Jersey and New York have just reintroduced the system. Back in the 1970s, some gas stations took to posting flags: green if they had gas, yellow if rationing was in effect, and red if they were out of gas. To conserve gas, the maximum speed limit was cut to 55 miles per hour. To cut energy consumption in the broader economy, daylight savings time was introduced year-round at the beginning of 1974, facing criticism from parents whose kids had to go to school before sunrise in the winter months. Number 3. Listening to a transistor radio. These fell out of style once everyone started using Walkman and other personal devices, but some will remember how during the 1960s and 70s, everyone had a transistor radio. It's reportedly one of the most popular electronic communication devices in history. Before streaming music blew up, folks had to access their pop hits elsewhere. The transistor radio. Back then, everyone had their own little personal transistor radio. They were portable so kids could travel with them everywhere and keep up to date with all the latest songs and radio shows. Unfortunately, unless you're driving in your car, people don't really tune into the radio that much anymore. We're pretty sure if it was still an option though, baby boomers would be cycling around the neighborhood with these little things on full blast. Number 4. Putting tinfoil on the TV antenna. Before flat screens, TVs were big boxes with an antenna on top. It might look silly, but people used to put tinfoil on the TV antenna to boost the signal and get a clearer picture. You know those memes on social media that say something like, "If you can remember this thing, you're officially old"? Well, if you remember putting aluminum foil on the ends of your antennas, you're officially old. Back in the 20th century, putting tinfoil on the end of an antenna was believed to improve reception. Some people really got into it too, with different aiming styles and everything. Sometimes it seemed like a bit of a cult, the people who put foil on their antennas. Here's the thing though, the results could be questionable, and for most people it didn't work very well. Today's antennas are more sophisticated, so you could actually be hurting your chances of a strong signal by doing this. Number 5. Watching the first season of SNL. The first season of Saturday Night Live aired on October 11, 1975. George Carlin was the host, and some of the cast members were Chevy Chase, John Belushi, and Gilda Radner. More than 40 years later, the show is still going strong. It kicked off, like the nearly 1,000 Saturday Night Live episodes that have aired in the time slot since, with a cold open sketch. Titled The Wolverines, the scene starred a young comedian and musician named John Belushi opposite the new show's head writer, Michael O'Donoghue. At its conclusion, another performer named Chevy Chase walked on stage, looked into the camera, and said, "Live from New York, it's Saturday night." So began the very first episode of Saturday Night Live, which wasn't the show's title at the time. SNL was originally titled NBC's Saturday Night, because there was already a show on ABC called Saturday Night Live with Howard Cosell. NBC would switch the name to what we know now in 1977. While SNL's inaugural season was an experiment in live comedy, it formed the basis for what's become an institution, and its success was propelled by its young, mostly unknown cast. Number 6. Talking to an operator. Before the age of automated systems and digital interfaces, reaching out for assistance meant dialing 0 and speaking to a live operator. These operators played a crucial role in connecting calls and facilitating communication in the early days of telephony. In the early 1900s, as telephone services became more widespread, telephone companies established offices to cater to the growing demand. Companies like the New York Telephone Company, a part of the renowned Ma Bell network, employed a significant number of operators to handle the influx of calls. Operators were tasked with knowing each customer and efficiently connecting calls to their intended recipients. In smaller communities, operators often had personal relationships with residents, adding a personalized touch to the communication process. While the methods of communication have evolved over time, with digital interfaces and automated systems now prevalent, the nostalgic practice of dialing 0 to speak to an operator remains a fond memory for those who experienced it firsthand. Number 7. TV channels signing off at night. In the bygone era of limited television options, it was a common sight to witness TV channels signing off at the end of the night. Unlike today's 24-hour broadcasting, these channels would conclude their programming for the day, leaving viewers with graphics or test patterns until the next broadcast day. For those who grew up during this time, the concept of TV channels signing off may seem antiquated and nostalgic. With only a handful of channels available and no DVR or on-demand services, missing a favorite TV show meant waiting until its next scheduled airing. The nightly sign-off ritual often included the playing of the national anthem, serving as a symbolic end to the broadcasting day. Number 8. Black athletes protest the national anthem at the Olympics. The 1968 Olympics in Mexico City marked a pivotal moment in the history of sports and civil rights, epitomized by the iconic image of Tommy Smith and John Carlos, African-American sprinters raising their fists in a Black Power salute during the medal ceremony for the 200-meter race. In a bold and defiant act of protest, Smith, the gold medalist, and Carlos, the bronze medalist, utilized the global platform of the Olympics to shed light on the ongoing struggles faced by Black people in America and around the world. Their gesture, accompanied by the wearing of beads, scarves to oppose lynchings, and black socks symbolizing poverty, resonated far beyond the confines of the athletic arena. Smith's poignant words, "If I win, I am an American, not a Black American. But if I did something bad, then they would say a Negro. We are Black and we are proud of being Black," underscores the athlete's commitment to racial pride and solidarity. However, the powerful statement made by Smith and Carlos was met with intense backlash and condemnation. They faced vilification, threats, and ostracism for their actions, both professionally and personally. Yet their courage and unwavering resolve to speak out against injustice left an indelible mark on the history of sports and social activism. The protest at the 1968 Olympics was not an isolated incident, but rather a reflection of the turbulent political climate of the late 1960s, characterized by widespread civil rights activism and calls for racial equality. Smith and Carlos's actions served as a catalyst for discussions on race, equality, and the role of athletes as agents of social change. Number 9. Holding a sit-in to protest. The sit-in movement, a powerful and nonviolent expression of resistance during the U.S. Civil Rights era, unfolded against the backdrop of systemic racial segregation, and it stands as a testament to the courage and determination of those who sought justice and equality. Emerging in Greensboro, North Carolina in 1960, the sit-in was a form of civil disobedience designed to challenge the discriminatory policies that relegated African Americans to second-class citizenship. This tactic involved African American students, later joined by white activists, entering segregated lunch counters, sitting in all available spaces, requesting service, and, upon denial, steadfastly refusing to leave based on their race. What started with 4 participants in a Greensboro lunch counter quickly burgeoned into a widespread movement. The sit-ins garnered attention and sympathy from moderates and individuals not directly involved, amplifying the message of the demonstrators. The act of civil disobedience was not only a means of protest, but also a strategy to draw unwanted publicity and inflict economic hardship on the businesses perpetuating segregation. The impact of the sit-in movement was profound, spreading across the southern states in 1960 and 1961. Approximately 70,000 black and white participants engaged in these acts of resistance, reaching 20 states and catalyzing the desegregation of numerous local businesses. The sit-ins became a symbol of grassroots activism, illustrating the collective power of ordinary individuals to effect change. Number 10. The signing of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. The signing of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 stands as a pivotal moment in American history, ushering in a new era of equality and challenging the deeply entrenched roots of discrimination. Although baby boomers may have been too young to witness President Lyndon B. Johnson putting pen to paper on this transformative legislation, they undoubtedly experienced its profound impact on society, shaping their lives and the nation as a whole. The seeds of the Civil Rights Act were sown through the courageous actions of individuals like Rosa Parks. On December 1, 1955, Parks, weary of the racial segregation that permeated public buses, refused to yield her seat to a white man, a defiant act that ignited the Montgomery bus boycott. This peaceful protest, fueled by a collective desire for justice, resonated across the nation, setting the stage for the broader civil rights movement. People always say that I didn't give up my seat because I was tired, but that isn't true, Rosa Parks wrote in her autobiography. I was not tired physically. No, the only tired I was tired of giving in. Parks's refusal to surrender her dignity became a rallying cry for justice, inspiring countless individuals to stand against the oppressive forces of segregation. The Civil Rights Act of 1964, signed into law by President Johnson on July 2nd, represented a landmark legislative triumph. It aimed to dismantle institutionalized discrimination by outlawing segregation based on race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. The sweeping reforms set forth in the act transcended legal barriers, heralding a commitment to equal rights and opportunities for all. Number 11. Playing with a Howdy Doody doll and watching his show. The enchanting world of Howdy Doody captured the hearts of children across the nation, making its debut on NBC's Puppet Playhouse TV show in 1947. As the lovable puppet found his way into households, the show gained immense popularity, eventually earning Howdy Doody his own dedicated program during the 1950s. The Puppet Playhouse TV show on NBC became a cherished part of the childhood experience for baby boomers. The excitement of tuning in to watch Howdy Doody's adventures was a shared cultural phenomenon that brought joy to countless households. As children eagerly gathered around their television sets, the endearing puppet became a beloved companion, fostering a sense of wonder and imagination. The character's popularity transcended the confines of the television screen, giving rise to a world of Howdy Doody merchandise. Among the cherished collectibles was the Howdy Doody doll, a tangible embodiment of the puppet's whimsical charm. For boomer kids, playing with the Howdy Doody doll became a delightful pastime, allowing them to reenact scenes from the show and create their own imaginative adventures. The Howdy Doody doll, with its distinctive features and endearing smile, became a cherished possession for many young fans. Number 12. Marveling at electronic calculators. In the bygone era, the advent of electronic calculators marked a technological leap forward, promising to revolutionize the way calculations were performed. These early electronic tools represented a departure from traditional methods, where adding machines with manual handles and paper rolls were the norm. For businesses like your father's truck garage, accuracy in calculating figures was paramount. Adding machines, often large and noisy, were employed to generate a printed record of calculations. These machines required the physical effort of pulling a handle, and the results were documented on a paper roll. The transition to electronic calculators brought about a significant shift in the calculation landscape. No longer bound by manual handles and paper rolls, individuals were introduced to the convenience of punching buttons for precise calculations. The introduction of these calculators was particularly noteworthy during the era of President John F. Kennedy, etching memories for those who marveled at this technological wonder. The experience of using these electronic calculators was novel and entertaining. As opposed to the tactile process of pulling a handle, users could now input numeric keys, select functions, and witness the magic of instant results. While early models primarily handled addition and subtraction, the evolving technology soon accommodated more complex operations like multiplication and division. The allure of these calculators extended beyond practical applications, offering individuals hours of fascination as they explored the capabilities of these electronic marvels. You punched in the numbers and functioned the same way, then pushed a total key that might make the machine churn for as long as a half a minute before spitting out your answer. Number 13. Getting your mail twice a day. In the bygone era of early baby boomers, a routine sight was the familiar postman making not one, but 2 visits a day to deliver the mail. It's a quaint practice that might seem like a distant memory for many, but up until the 1950s, the United States Postal Service, or USPS, adhered to a schedule that involved twice daily mail deliveries to residential homes. The frequency of mail deliveries was governed by Section 92 of the 1873 Postal Laws and Regulations book, a guiding document for postal operations. This section stated that carriers would make deliveries as frequently as the public convenience may require. The interpretation of the public convenience was left to the discretion of postmasters, introducing a level of flexibility in mail daily practices. In essence, the rule allowed postmasters to tailor mail delivery schedules based on the specific needs of their cities. The criterion for determining the frequency of deliveries was closely tied to the business activities within the city. As a result, several cities opted for multiple daily deliveries, catering to both residential and business areas. The residential neighborhoods, in some instances, experienced 2 or even 3 mail deliveries a day, reflecting a commitment to meeting the public's convenience in those areas. Simultaneously, the bustling business districts enjoyed a more rigorous schedule, often receiving 4 or 5 daily deliveries. This approach aimed to ensure that businesses operated at peak efficiency, aligning with the interpreted notion of public convenience in a commercial context. Number 14. Watching the Wild West world of Bonanza. In the vast landscape of television history, one show stood tall, capturing the imagination of viewers and leaving an indelible mark on the cultural landscape. The iconic Western series Bonanza. Airing on NBC from September 12, 1959 to January 16, 1973, Bonanza became a sensation, not only for its compelling storytelling, but also for being one of the first television programs available in color, a technological marvel of its time. Lasting an impressive 14 seasons and boasting 431 episodes, Bonanza holds the distinction of being NBC's longest-running Western series and the second longest-running Western on U.S. network television, trailing only behind CBS's Gunsmoke. Even today, the show continues to captivate audiences in syndication, preserving its status as a timeless classic. Set against the backdrop of the 1860s, Bonanza revolves around the wealthy Cartwright family, residing in the vicinity of Virginia City, Nevada, with the stunning Lake Tahoe as a picturesque neighbor. The original cast featured stalwart actors such as Lorne Greene, Pernell Roberts, Dan Blocker, and Michael Landon, contributing to the show's enduring appeal. Bonanza was more than just a Western. It was a series that delved into pressing moral dilemmas, offering viewers a nuanced and thought-provoking narrative. Number 15. The Twist Dance. Let's imagine, as we look back, what a vibrant electric era we had in the 1960s. Rock and roll pulsating through the airwaves, and teenagers eager to break free from tradition. In this atmosphere of rebellion and revolution, the twist dance emerged as more than just a series of wild moves. It became a symbol of liberation and the freedom of expression. The post-World War II baby boom generation was in full swing, with rock and roll music dominating the scene and Elvis Presley captivating audiences with his scandalous gyrations. Influenced by the West Indies-inspired dances of African-American teenagers, urban kids put their own spin on swing dance, creating a new form of self-expression on the dance floor. Television played a crucial role in popularizing the twist. Local television stations, catering to the teenage demographic, filled their airtime with programs aimed at capturing the attention of the youth audience. Shows like Bandstand with Dick Clark became cultural touchstones, showcasing the latest dance crazes to millions of viewers across the nation. And then in 1960, Chubby Checker's rendition of The Twist took the world by storm. With its catchy beat and simple yet infectious dance moves, The Twist became an overnight sensation, spreading like wildfire from coast to coast. Suddenly everyone, from teenagers to their parents, were doing the twist, reveling in the joyous abandon of the dance craze. So next time you hear the familiar strains of The Twist, don't be afraid to join in and let your hips sway to the rhythm. After all, come on baby, let's do the twist. Number 16. Barbie dolls dominated. In the vibrant era of the 1960s, a cultural icon emerged, captivating the hearts of children worldwide, the Barbie doll. The brainchild of Ruth Handler, co-founder of Mattel Incorporated, Barbie made her debut on March 9, 1959, forever changing the landscape of the toy industry. The inspiration for Barbie struck Ruth Handler when she observed her daughter engaged in imaginative play with paper dolls. Naming the doll after her daughter, Barbie quickly evolved from a simple toy to a cultural phenomenon, bringing joy to millions of children across the globe. Standing at 11 inches tall, Barbie boasted the figure of an adult woman, presenting a departure from traditional dolls. The doll's physical appearance drew inspiration from the German-built Lily doll, originally designed as a risque gag gift for men based on a character featured in the West German newspaper Bild Zeitung. Controversy surrounded Barbie's body, with some mothers in a 1958 market study criticizing her for having too much of a figure. Undeterred, Mattel cleverly marketed Barbie directly to children through television, sponsoring Walt Disney's Mickey Mouse Club in 1955 and becoming the first toy company to broadcast commercials to young audiences. By 1965, Barbie's sales reached an astounding $100 million, solidifying her status as a cultural icon. Barbie transcended mere toy status. She became a symbol of imagination, aspiration, and the evolving roles and expectations for girls and boys alike. Number 17. Following the Loving v. Virginia court case. Imagine living in a time when laws prohibited people of different races from marrying each other. It's hard to fathom, but that was the reality until Mildred and Richard Loving challenged the status quo and changed history forever. In 1967, the Supreme Court case Loving v. Virginia rocked the nation by striking down state laws that banned interracial marriage. At the heart of the case were Richard Loving, a white man, and Mildred Loving, a black woman, who had been sentenced to prison for the crime of being married under Virginia state law. With the support of the American Civil Liberties Union, or the ACLU, the Lovings took their fight all the way to the highest court in the land. In a landmark decision, the Supreme Court unanimously ruled that laws prohibiting interracial marriage violated the 14th Amendment of the United States Constitution. The Loving v. Virginia case marked a pivotal moment in the civil rights movement, striking a blow against the institutional racism of the Jim Crow era. June 12th, the day the Supreme Court issued its decision, is now celebrated as Loving Day, a reminder of the power of love to overcome prejudice and discrimination. Number 18. Taking part in Beetle Mania. If you were there when Beetle Mania swept the nation, then you're undoubtedly a baby boomer who witnessed music history in the making. The Beatles, with their infectious tunes and irresistible charm, captured the hearts of millions around the world. It all started in 1964, when the Fab Four made their iconic appearance on The Ed Sullivan Show, captivating a staggering 73 million viewers. This marked the beginning of Beetle Mania, a cultural phenomenon that transcended borders and generations. With 6 number-1 hits on the Billboard Hot 100 and a string of chart-topping albums, the Beatles became synonymous with success. Their sold-out concert at Shea Stadium in 1965 remains one of the most iconic moments in music history, drawing a crowd of over 56,000 ecstatic fans. For baby boomers, Beetle Mania wasn't just a craze, it was a way of life. So if you had fond memories of grooving to I Want to Hold Your Hand or swooning over John, Paul, George, and Ringo, share your Beetle Mania stories in the comments below. Number 19. Driving into the movies. I will never forget the golden age of cinema, where the silver screen met the open road. Baby boomers, do you remember the thrill of driving into the movies? Picture this, cozy in your car, surrounded by loved ones, as larger-than-life characters graced the screen before you. Drive-in movies weren't just about watching films, they were about creating unforgettable memories under the stars. Who can forget the delight of munching on popcorn while watching classics like The Pink Panther or the original Parent Trap from the comfort of your own car? The history of drive-in movies traces back to 1933, when the first drive-in theater opened its doors in New Jersey. It was a revolutionary concept, allowing movie buffs to enjoy their favorite films in a whole new way. By the 1950s, drive-ins had become a cultural phenomenon, with over 4,000 theaters dotting the American landscape. While the popularity of drive-ins may have waned in recent years, their nostalgic charm continues to captivate moviegoers of all ages. Number 20. Riding a banana seat bike. Ah, the wind in your hair, the thrill of the open road, and the unmistakable style of the banana seat bike. Every baby boomer's cherished memory. These bikes, with their chopper-like design, high handlebars, and that iconic banana seat, were the epitome of cool. Introduced by Schwinn in 1963 as the Stingray, these bikes became an instant hit, capturing the hearts of kids across the nation. The banana seat, paired with high-rise handlebars, not only gave the bike a chopper aesthetic, but also offered a comfy ride, accommodating more than one young adventurer. And let's not forget the ultimate customizing trend, clipping baseball cards to the spokes for that sweet resonant sound as you sped down the street. It was an era when simple joys brought immense happiness. Number 21. Using a payphone to call someone. Let's rewind to the days when communication on the go wasn't just a tap away. Baby boomers, you'll surely reminisce about the ubiquitous payphones that once adorned every street corner. Back in the day, finding a payphone was as common as spotting a street lamp. Those sturdy booths stood tall, ready to connect you with loved ones or summon a ride when needed. Ah, the good old days when the jingle of spare change was music to our ears. Fast forward to today, and payphones have become a rare sight, akin to spotting a unicorn in the urban jungle. Smartphones have taken center stage, rendering these once indispensable communication hubs obsolete. The younger generation might even be puzzled by the existence of phone booths. If you're a boomer who recalls the days of scrambling for coins to make a call or waiting in line for your turn, share your payphone tales in the comments below. And if you're enjoying this episode, give that like button a gentle tap and consider subscribing for more nostalgic journeys. Number 22. Seeing billboards advertising tobacco. I remember the days when the open road was adorned with more than just scenic views. Baby boomers, cast your minds back to the days when billboards proudly showcased tobacco brands. Joe Camel, the Marlboro Man, and iconic slogans like "It's Toasted" were as familiar as street signs. In the 60s and 70s, smoking wasn't just a personal choice, it was the epitome of cool. Cigarette advertisements weren't confined to magazines or TV screens. They were out there on billboards, part of the landscape. Smoking was a social norm, and those who didn't indulge might have been seen as a bit eccentric. Fast forward to today, and the cultural landscape has shifted dramatically. With the knowledge of smoking's detrimental health effects, tobacco's advertising on billboards is a thing of the past. The days of seeing those familiar logos along the roadside are long gone, thanks to the 1997 Tobacco Master Settlement Agreement. Number 23. When smoking got away with a lot. Oh, the good old days when smoking was as ubiquitous as air. Baby boomers, do you remember when lighting up a cigarette on an airplane was not just acceptable, but expected? Unbelievable, right? It wasn't until the 1990s that the skies cleared of tobacco smoke with a complete ban on in-flight smoking. And let's not forget the era when cigarette advertisements were as common as traffic lights. In the swinging 60s, the Marlboro Man and other tobacco icons were plastered everywhere. Smoking was synonymous with being cool, a symbol of rugged charm, whether it was in movies, billboards, TV commercials, or magazines. But times have changed, and so have our perceptions. Awareness about the dangers of smoking led to a ban on cigarette advertising, and the public shifted from idolizing the suave smoker to recognizing the serious health risks. Emphysema? Not so cool. If you have memories of a time when cigarettes were the height of sophistication, or perhaps stories of in-flight smoking, share your thoughts in the comments below. Number 24. Searching for a number in the phone book. In an era before smartphones and quick online searches, finding a phone number meant a journey through the bulky yet indispensable phone book. Baby boomers, cast your minds back to the days of flipping through pages in search of that elusive contact. And did you know, if you were navigating the streets of Hollywood in the boomer days, you might have stumbled upon a young Woody Allen on a quest for the right number on those pages. Imagine the challenge of finding Bob Smith in a sea of names. If you're a boomer who remembers the anticipation of locating a number in the phone book, or perhaps faced the challenge of a common name, share your experiences with us in the comments below. Number 25. Using a typewriter. Those rhythmic clatters of typewriter keys. Baby boomers, who can forget the days when crafting a letter meant sitting before a typewriter, a relic in today's digital age. And the horror of typos. No backspace, just the hope that liquid paper could salvage your prose. Fun fact, did you know that even in the modern era, famed director Woody Allen remains loyal to his typewriter? From the beginning of his illustrious career to this day, Allen insists on crafting his scripts using this vintage writing tool. One wonders how many typos he gracefully embraces, given the unforgiving nature of the typewriter's keys. If you've ever composed a masterpiece on a typewriter or appreciate the nostalgia it brings, hit that like button, subscribe for more blasts from the past, and share your typewriter tales in the comments below. Because in the world of digital perfection, the typewriter holds a special place in the hearts of those who remember the click-clack symphony of words coming to life. Number 26. Seeing the Milkman every day. Let's rewind to a time when refrigeration wasn't as prevalent, and baby boomers will remember a daily ritual that brought fresh milk right to their doorstep, the milkman's visit. In an era where waiting for weekly delivery was the norm, the milkman played a crucial role in ensuring households had a daily supply of fresh milk. Families subscribed to milk delivery services, and each morning, the milkman would make his rounds, dropping off bottles of milk and collecting empties from the previous deliveries. Back in the 1960s, approximately 30% of milk was still being delivered, a practice that saw a decline as modern refrigerators became commonplace in households. Today, while grocery stores offer their own delivery services, the image of the friendly milkman delivering to your doorstep is a nostalgic memory for many. By the mid-70s, almost all households had modern refrigerators, and since then, everyone had to start going to grocery stores and pick up their milk. Number 27. Sears before Amazon. Imagine a world without the convenience of 2-day shipping. For baby boomers, the Sears catalog was their version of the digital marketplace, where orders for toys, clothing, tools, and more were made. However, unlike the swift delivery of today, Sears shipments took weeks, not days or hours. Sears' mail order catalog, affectionately known as the Big Book, played a role akin to Amazon in the Victorian era and beyond. It became a retail giant, boasting a catalog with over 1,000 pages offering a vast array of items, from tools and hardware to apparel, furniture, sporting goods, and even entertainment centers. Sears, after opening its first physical store in 1925, ascended to become the nation's largest retail chain. It introduced iconic in-house brands like Die Hard, Kenmore, and Craftsman. In 1973, the Sears Tower, the company's headquarters, held the title of the tallest building in the world. For boomers, the Sears catalog wasn't just a shopping guide, it was a window to a world of possibilities. The anticipation of a Sears delivery, even if it took weeks, brought excitement and joy to households across America. If you're a boomer with fond memories of flipping through the big book, hit that like button, subscribe for more nostalgic stories, and share your favorite Sears catalog purchases in the comments below. After all, in a world before Amazon, Sears was the retail giant that brought dreams to doorsteps. Number 28. Tuning into I Love Lucy. Now let's switch gears from shopping aisles to living rooms, where the magic of classic sitcoms unfolded. For the baby boomer generation, tuning into I Love Lucy wasn't just watching a show, it was a weekly ritual filled with laughter, joy, and the timeless antics of Lucy and Desi. I Love Lucy wasn't just a sitcom, it was a cultural phenomenon that dominated television ratings from its debut in 1951. For 4 out of its 6 seasons, it claimed the title of the most-watched show in the United States. The show, centered around the delightful and comedic escapades of Lucy Ricardo and her husband Desi Arnaz, became an integral part of American households. From Lucy's hilarious schemes to Desi's exasperated yet endearing reactions, the show struck a chord with audiences around the nation. Even after the regularly aired seasons concluded between 51 and 57, the legacy of I Love Lucy lived on through 13 one-hour specials, including the Lucille Ball-Desi Arnaz Show, keeping the laughter alive into 1960. Today, we can easily stream I Love Lucy on various platforms like Hulu, but for the baby boomers, it was a weekly event, eagerly awaited and celebrated with family and friends. Number 29. Five and Dimes. Alright, let's take a stroll down memory lane to a time when shopping wasn't just a click away, but a charming experience at the local 5 and Dime stores. If you're a baby boomer, you'll definitely remember these neighborhood gems, where everything came with a nickel or dime price tag. And Woolworths? Oh, that's a name that still brings a nostalgic smile. Back in the day, before the era of shopping malls and retail giants, 5 and Dime stores were the go-to places for all your needs. These establishments, with names like Woolworths, Ben Franklin, and Cress, were treasure troves where you could find anything from penny candy to household essentials, all at incredibly affordable prices. Imagine stepping into one of these stores, greeted by the jingle of the entrance bell. The shelves were lined with a variety of items, each with its modest price tag. Need some penny candy to satisfy your sweet tooth? Check. Looking for household goods without breaking the bank? They've got you covered. And let's not forget the charm of grabbing a quick bite at the lunch counters, another cherished memory from the 5 and Dime era. Woolworths, in particular, holds a special place in the hearts of many boomers. Number 30. Licking and sticking SNH Green Stamps. Now, let's take a delightful trip to the days when rewards and loyalty programs were a bit more hands-on. Say hello to SNH Green Stamps, the OG loyalty currency that had baby boomers licking and sticking their way to rewards. Back in the day, there were no digital points or apps. Instead, customers were handed SNH Green Stamps with every purchase. These little green treasures could later be redeemed for various goodies. And how did one stock up on these stamps? Well, that's where the satisfying ritual of licking and sticking came into play. Picture this. After a shopping spree, you'd find yourself at home, armed with a book of SNH Green Stamps. Your mission? To meticulously lick the back of each stamp and stick it onto the designated pages of your stamp book. It was a strangely satisfying and oddly nostalgic task that became a household ritual for many. Here's a fun fact to sprinkle on the nostalgia. Although these stamps peaked in popularity in the 60s and remained a shopping staple until the 80s, SNH generously allowed stamps to be redeemed until 2019, extending the legacy of these little green emblems. The story of SNH Green Stamps goes way back to the 1930s, when they first gained popularity during the challenging times of the Great Depression. These green gems became a lifeline for many, offering an affordable way to purchase gifts and household essentials by simply doing the necessary shopping. Fast forward to the swinging 60s, and SNH Green Stamps were in their prime, outperforming even the U.S. Postal Service. During this era, SNH issued an astonishing 3 times more stamps than the post office did, and their annual catalogs reached a whopping 35 million, making it the largest publication in the country at the time. However, like many good things, the era of SNH Green Stamps eventually saw a decline in the 70s. The company's shift in ownership in 1981 marked the end of an era, with only around 100 stores in the United States still offering these iconic stamps, mostly in New York and New Jersey. So if you're a baby boomer, you probably have vivid memories of licking, sticking, and dreaming about the rewards those little green stamps would bring. Number 31. Roller skating rinks. And last but certainly not least, let's roll back in time to the glorious era of roller skating rinks. These weren't just places to skate, they were social hubs where you could glide onto the shimmering disco ball, showing off your best moves to the infectious tunes of the Bee Gees. Falling on your rear never felt more right, especially when it happened to the rhythm of Saturday Night Fever. Many baby boomers will fondly recall the childhood thrill of attaching metal skates to their shoes, tightening them with a trusty key, and then confidently rolling down the sidewalk. Those who ventured to the rinks were in for a more advanced experience with quad skates, the dominant design for over a century until rollerblades took the spotlight. In the 1950s, the dream of a joint bowling alley and skating rink was born when former Taconic Mill executive Edgar Broyles and neighbor Al Bianacci, owner of Pastime Bowling Lanes, made ambitious plans for a remote Dalton Avenue plot. While both entrepreneurs unfortunately passed away before realizing their vision, the Broyles family persevered, focusing solely on the skating rink. Enter Broyles Arena, completed in 1952 at a cost of $125,000. This skating haven boasted the title of the largest in the Berkshires, featuring a sprawling maple floor skating area spanning 7,480 square feet. Picture this, enough space to accommodate 600 skaters or up to 1,800 dancers, transforming the rink into a lively dance floor. Number 32. Leisure suits. I love the leisure suit. It was a marvel of polyester and a staple of 70s fashion. It was the uniform of the cool and casual, often seen in eye-searing colors that tested the endurance of your sweat glands. In an era where times were laid back and neckties were passé, the leisure suit reigned supreme. With its open collars and shirts unbuttoned almost down to the waist, it was the perfect canvas to display a shag carpet of chest hair adorned with gold chains. Truly high fashion of its time. While I may have been too young to sport a hairy chest myself, I vividly remember seeing plenty of 30-somethings strutting around in leisure suits, hoping that there's no photographic evidence to haunt them today. The leisure suit craze wasn't just confined to the streets. It found its way onto television screens in shows like Starsky and Hutch and onto the silver screen with icons like John Travolta, sporting them in all their glory. Today, leisure suits might be viewed with a mix of contempt and ridicule, but they're also the perfect candidate for an unlikely comeback in the ever-cycling world of fashion. Number 33. Macrame everything. In the groovy 70s, if it could be knotted, it was macrameed. The art of macrame wasn't just a craft, it was a full-blown obsession for me. From plant holders to wall hangings to clothing, it seemed like we collectively decided that rope was the new yarn. The beauty of macrame lay in its simplicity and versatility. With just some string and a bit of patience, almost anything was possible. It wasn't just about creating decorative pieces, it was a testament to the creativity and spirit of the 60s, where ordinary materials were transformed into works of art. Interestingly, the macrame craze of the 70s wasn't unique to that decade. It shared its popularity with the much more restrained Victorian era. Imagine a tightly corseted Victorian lady boogieing at Studio 54. Quite the juxtaposition. During the 70s, macrame articles were ubiquitous. They adorned ceilings, were carried by fashionable ladies, worn as clothing, and even hung proudly in front of home entrances. It was a symbol of the era's free-spirited creativity and DIY ethos. Number 34. CB radios. Before the era of cell phones, there were CB radios, the social media of the road. While truckers initially embraced them, everyday folks soon joined the trend. It was a communication revolution, complete with the personalized touch of choosing your own cool handle. Over and out, rubber duck. Setting up CB bases at home allowed people to connect and make friends, a precursor to today's internet and Facebook. But in the 70s, it was a thrill to sit down and announce your presence with a hearty, "Breaker, breaker, I'm 10-8, what's your handle?" For those unfamiliar with CB lingo, your handle was essentially your screen name. While contemporary internet users might identify themselves as Bigfoot, Boomer, or Crazy Legs, back in 1976, it was "You got cutie pie here," or similar colorful monikers that resonated over the radio waves. Number 35. Wanting to be as cool as Paul Newman. In the pantheon of coolness, few figures shine as brightly as Paul Newman did for the baby boomer generation. While today's kids might only recognize him from pizza or popcorn boxes in the store, boomers remember him as the epitome of effortless cool, a movie star who didn't just act, he raced cars. Paul Newman wasn't just a Hollywood heartthrob, He was one of the first modern Jewish superstars. His on-screen persona encapsulated the post-World War II anti-hero's alienation and a nonchalant existential heroism. With his stunning looks and screen-searing charisma, Newman attracted fans worldwide, carving out a 50-year acting career that spanned from lesser-known early films like Until They Sail to defining Oscar-nominated roles in HUD and The Hustler, to his superbly crafted later performances in The Verdict and Nobody's Fool. What set Newman apart wasn't just his acting prowess, it was his dual life as a movie star and a race car driver. Notably starring in classics like Cool Hand Luke, Newman's real-life passion for racing added an extra layer of coolness to his films. Number 36. Smiley Faces. Back in the 70s, smiley faces weren't just emojis, but a vibrant lifestyle. These cheerful yellow symbols became ubiquitous, adorning everything from shirts and bags to bumper stickers. It was as if the world collectively declared, "Don't worry, be happy, and perhaps a bit trippy." The origin of the iconic smiley face can be traced back to a corporate initiative aimed at boosting employee morale. In 1963, State Mutual Life Assurance Company in Worcester, Massachusetts, faced the challenge of low morale following a merger. To remedy this, Vice President John Adam Jr. proposed a friendship campaign, and Joy Young, Assistant Director of Sales and Marketing, was tasked with its creation. Enter freelance artist Harvey Ball, a Worcester local, who was commissioned to design a symbol for the campaign. Ball's initial creation was a simple smile, but feeling unsatisfied, he added 2 eyes, giving birth to the iconic smiley face. The entire drawing took a mere 10 minutes, and Ball was compensated $240 for the entire campaign, never foreseeing the enduring impact of his creation. While initially intended for internal use, the smiley face took on a life of its own. By 1971, it became the hottest-selling image in the country, with an estimated 50 million smiley buttons sold and its presence expanding to various products. State Mutual is now Allmerica Financial, and Worcester Insurance Company, formerly Worcester Mutual Fire Insurance, still features the smiley face in its promotional material. The smiley face frenzy experienced a decline in the mid-1970s, marking the end of the initial fad. However, this iconic symbol staged a remarkable comeback in the late 1980s, aligning with a resurgence of 60s and 70s inspired symbols, fashions, and music. Today, the smiley face's popularity endures, proving its appeal to be both universal and timeless. Number 37. Riding in the family's wood-paneled station wagon. It's hard to resist the nostalgia of the family's wood-paneled station wagon, a true icon of the 60s and 70s. While wood-paneled cars were introduced in the 1930s, it was in the 60s and 70s that they truly found their place as reliable yet stylish family vehicles. The beloved Woody station wagon, often adorned with faux wood grain exterior paneling, was the quintessential family car before the era of SUVs. If your dad rolled up in one of these beauties, you could bet he couldn't wait to proudly show it off to the neighbors. For over a decade, these clunky yet endearing automobiles graced the highways, becoming a common sight. The faux wood grain exterior, resembling stereo speakers on wheels, was a peculiar yet iconic aesthetic choice for many families. The mere mention of these wood-paneled wonders evokes images of dashboards filled with 8-track tapes and cigarette lighters, capturing a snapshot of a bygone era. Number 38. The mullet. In my opinion, the mullet is one of the best haircuts of all time. It defied logic and yet defined a whole decade. Short at the front for sensibility, long at the back for a wild side. It was the hairstyle equivalent of a surprise party. The mullet was the only haircut that could confidently say, "I pay my taxes, but I also know all the words to Bohemian Rhapsody." Back in the 60s, Tom Jones sported a mullet in 2 of his 3 1965 performances of It's Not Unusual on The Ed Sullivan Show. As the 70s rolled in, mullets found their place on the heads of rock stars like David Bowie, Rod Stewart, Keith Richards, and Paul McCartney. The mullet was more than just a haircut. It was a bold statement, a fashion choice that left no one indifferent. It was business in the front, party in the back, an iconic style of its time that, for better or worse, still lives on today. Number 30. Wearing bell-bottoms. Now let's groove into the dance floor of the 70s, where bell-bottoms, shiny polyester shirts, and platform shoes ruled the scene. If you didn't spend at least one Saturday night doing the hustle, can you say you were really living? The peak of bell-bottom popularity and flares hit in the 1970s. Sonny and Cher's TV show, starting in 1971, is often credited as the turning point for public acceptance of this stylish trend. By the mid-70s, bell-bottoms were not just a casual choice, but the go-to style for men's dress pants. The size of the flare became the defining factor, differentiating business wear from casual flair. Number 40. Pet rocks. The 70s, an era when people decided that traditional pets were just too mainstream. Enter the pet rock, the epitome of a low-maintenance companion that never needed walking or feeding. It was just a simple rock with googly eyes, but that was enough to rock our world. Who needs to stress over pet hair when you can have a shiny, quiet rock? While they couldn't fetch or purr, pet rocks were the epitome of zero maintenance. Their stoic silence made them perfect for introspective nights. They brought tranquility and a touch of humor into homes. No walkies required. Number 41. Avocado Green Appliances. Now let's step into the kitchen of the 70s, where every home had at least one appliance in avocado green. It was the color of choice, turning your fridge or blender into a giant vegetable. Because who doesn't want their kitchen to scream salad? The 70s kitchen palette was all about earth tones like avocado green, often paired with wood grain and floral patterns. Some might say it looks a bit dated now, but for others, it brings a warm, nostalgic feel of home. You can dip your toes into the waters of 1970s nostalgia without going full-on avocado. Number 42. Platform shoes. Let's talk about platform shoes. Those towering feats of fashion that were more like stilts disguised as footwear. Walking in them wasn't just a stroll, it was a skill, an art form, and let's face it, a bit of a risk. Tripping over never looked so stylish. Every step was a towering achievement, but let's be honest, it was also a sprained ankle waiting to happen. Would you believe that platform shoes have been around since the days of the Roman Empire? Back then, actors would wear platform-soled shoes about an inch thick while performing plays. Fast forward to the late 1400s, and fashionable women in Venice were strutting around in chopines, raised overshoes that slipped over their more delicate shoes, protecting them from the muddy streets of the ever-sinking city. But like Venice itself, the chopine eventually disappeared. It wasn't until the 1930s that platform shoes made a comeback, sporting very Art Deco styles on both continents. During World War II, shoes were made from cork and leather soles due to rubber shortages. Then, just as suddenly as they appeared, platform shoes vanished again in the 1940s. Enter the freewheeling late 60s, as bell-bottoms started making waves in American fashion. It was only natural to see thick platform-soled shoes accompanying them, especially on the ladies. And as we ventured into the 70s, the bells got bigger, the platforms got higher, and the men joined in on the fun with their own platform heels. Number 43. Track tapes. Alright, who remembers the 8-track tapes? Those chunky ancestors of the cassette tape that were the Spotify of the 70s, except they had a knack for switching tracks mid-song. Talk about a jam session, turned sudden, jarring silence. The 8-track tape, a magnetic tape sound recording technology, had its heyday from 1964 to 1988 in the United States. It was quite the sensation before the compact cassette format took over. But let's be honest, the 8-track tapes had their quirks. Whether it was about the abrupt interruptions in the middle of your favorite song or the challenge of finding the right track, they added a unique flavor to the music experience. Number 44. Fondue Parties. Now let's talk about fondue parties, the social media of the 70s. Imagine this. You gather around a pot of molten cheese or chocolate with friends and family, and you dip anything you dared into that communal, slightly messy, yet utterly delicious concoction. It was the perfect excuse to play with your food. By the early 1970s, fondue became a social sensation among young baby boomers. Picture this scene. A warm, bubbling pot of cheese fondue as the centerpiece, everyone armed with chunks of crusty bread, vegetables, or whatever else they fancied for the ultimate dipping experience. It was all about communal indulgence and creating lasting memories around that sizzling pot of goodness. Number 45. Shag Carpets. I love Shag Carpets. They are like strolling through a furry forest in your own home. These plush wonders were everywhere, available in colors not found in nature. Sure, cleaning them was a nightmare, but the feeling of those plush fibers between your toes? Priceless. The origins of shag carpets are said to date back thousands of years ago, but their relevance to the boomer generation can be traced back to the end of World War II. As technologies advanced, wall-to-wall carpeting became an affordable option for young families, becoming a desired aspect of the new suburban lifestyle. And let's not forget those vibrant psychedelic colors that adorn living rooms across the nation. Who else remembers sinking their toes into the plush goodness of a shag carpet? Number 46. Waterbeds. Now let's talk about the waterbed, a bizarre cross between a mattress and a personal indoor pool. Nothing screamed, "I'm hip and with it," like sleeping on a giant wobbly water balloon. Plus, who needed coffee when getting out of bed was an extreme sport? The waterbed made its debut around half a century ago as the counterculture's solution to a lack of sleep. Of course, the promise of sloshy lovemaking didn't hurt its appeal either. It was an immediate, groovy-licious success, but alas, like many fads, its reign was short-lived. The novelty wore off, the revolution died, and the era faded away. but for those who experienced the waterbed craze, it was definitely a wild ride. Number 47. Mood rings. We all remember mood rings, the OG emoji of the 70s. Before we had smiley faces on our screens, we had these magical accessories that claimed to reveal our inner emotions by changing color with our body temperature. But let's be real, they were usually just stuck on anxious or too cold, weren't they? In 1975, two inventors from New York, Joshua Reynolds and Maris Ambatz, introduced mood rings to the world. They claimed that these rings would change colors as wearers' moods or emotional states changed. And boy did they become a fad, especially among young girls. A fad describes something that gains popularity quickly and is followed enthusiastically by a large group of people. But let's not deny it. Who didn't love the thrill of seeing their ring change color and wondering what it meant? It was like having a tiny mood tracker on your finger. Who remembers rocking these mood rings back in the day? Number 48. Eating Swanson dinners. Let's talk about a culinary revolution that brought the feast to your TV tray. Swanson TV dinners. The first Swanson TV dinners offered a veritable Thanksgiving feast with turkey, gravy, whipped potatoes, peas, stuffing, and even cobbler for dessert. Sure, you can still find TV dinners today, but only a select few will remember when these were the cutting edge of convenient meals. The first Swanson brand TV dinners were a Thanksgiving dream come true, created to utilize a surplus of turkey. Picture this. Families gathered around their state-of-the-art chunky color TVs, digging into an instant meal. It wasn't just dinner, it was a staple for the working to middle-class American family. Who remembers the joy of pulling back that foil and digging into a perfectly compartmentalized meal? Stay tuned as we unravel more memories from the past. Number 49. Lava lamps. Now let's dive into the epitome of 70s cool, the lava lamp. A hypnotic dance of colorful goo floating in a sleek tube. It was like watching psychedelic jellyfish at a very slow rave. Baby boomers, did you have one of these in your room? Lava lamps were more than just decor. They were psychedelic trips without ever leaving your room. These blobs of waxy wonder were conversation starters, meditation aids, and frankly, early physics lessons. They invited us to question the cosmos or just escape a drab day, encapsulating the spirit of the 60s without uttering a word. Shout out to those who spent hours entranced by the slow dance of blobs in a tube. Number 50. Jell Salads. All right, let's kick off this nostalgic journey with a wobbly delight. Jell Salads. Picture this. The 70s dinner party showstopper, a concoction of fruit, veggies, and sometimes inexplicably tuna, all encased in a tower of gelatin. It was like a culinary science experiment that raised eyebrows but was devoured nonetheless. Baby boomers, brace yourself for a trip down the gelatinous memory lane. Now let's talk about the bizarre world of Jell-O. Baby boomers will recall the era when people dared to use Jell-O with everything. Salads, ham, lamb, fruits, cheese, you name it. It was a time when creativity knew no bounds, and the result was a colorful array of jiggly wonders. From suspending fruits in a gelatin mosaic to crafting wobbly towers, it was all a game of will it set or turn into a delightful disaster. Thankfully, this peculiar trend faded by the 70s, leaving us with memories of experiments gone by. Thanks for watching. If these blasts from the past hit you right in the feels, don't forget to give us a thumbs up, hit subscribe, and ring that bell to stay tuned for more nostalgic content. Until next time, keep those memories alive and stay tuned.